begin trekking to Codlin's
Rest.
Codlin's Rest.
Codlin. CODDLIN''S rest.
Codlin's Rest.
Yes.
Okay. Where are the goblins?
There are no goblins.
They're resting.
They're okay. There are no goblins because they're all asleep. Got it.
The journey there actually is going to take a couple days. And I actually wanted to take this opportunity. So you guys in the game have been working together and training for the past 3 months or so. So you guys are fairly familiar with each other, but I don't know that you, the players, are. So I wanted to take this opportunity to sort of walk around and give you each a couple minutes to talk about who you are, if what you look like is important, go ahead and talk about that, and sort of anything you think is relevant or would have come out about yourself in sort of 3 months of training as a squad. Primarily, this is I do not know how much of your backstories you want to be like public knowledge from the outset versus this is something I'm keeping close to the vest. And so why don't we start with Rich?
Yeah, so I am Jider Thuliaga. I'm a Goliath standing at, I call it 8 feet, but it's like 7, 8 or something like that. I've been a little bit cagey about parts of my past. What you guys would probably know is that I came from the mountains where the Goliaths live. I'm pretty much the only Goliath with magic powers of any kind that we have heard of or know about for years and years and years. So I had to kind of leave my family and stuff to figure out how to use magic, But I visit my little home from time to time with family still alive, couple of siblings. Otherwise, I'm like charismatic. There's like when I smile, it literally twinkles. I've got like a little flowing mane of like strawberry blonde hair. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm all about kind of being on top of stuff and bringing like balance to things, and like that's kind of why I joined up. Is I like things to be ordered and that kind of thing.
Robert, Bob. Do you go by Bob to everybody?
Yeah, Bob.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Bob Loblaw.
All right, thanks, Brian. You're the best. That never changed, you asshole. Yeah. So I'm Bob. Used to work as a Imperial Paladin back in the Empire, and then that kind of fell out. I do not talk really about why that happened, but I think it would be more or less common knowledge that I used to work there. Also common knowledge, I've kind of bounced between Jaeger Corps for the past 2 or 3 years now, just kind of staying in one probably for no longer than a half year to a year, and then moving on to the next. Probably got a reputation for somewhat washing out. I really like my booze, and if any of you drink, I definitely hit it up with you after the long hours training. And just yeah. And yeah, I don't know if it really would have come up, but from a more poor peasant farmer family originally. So like nothing grand, no grand origins there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, Paladin. Generally try to take the front of any combat we get into.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Jider, did you actually mention what class you are?
I said I was a warlock, I think.
I think
You
you said you
The
were
mentioned
first
magic.
half of that was really confident, and then the last half, I said I was a warlock, I think.
Well, I think I said at the beginning. I don't think I went into it that much.
Okay. I
But
couldn't remember.
There was a magic user.
if it matters, my patron's Celestial. I haven't told you guys about that at all. But other than like you can probably tell that I do celestial stuff. Hence the twinkling
literally
smile.
twinkling smile.
Yeah.
Okay. So is it Achilles or Achilles? I understand the joke you were making.
Achilles.
Okay.
I was hoping.
Okay. So your turn.
So is this a matter of how much information has been?
Yeah. So this is sort of out
Portrayed
of
to them.
character. Like if you've been training with these guys for 3 months, sort of what would and wouldn't they know? It's sort of hitting a baseline of, to your point, like in Discord, like you would know each other's classes and ability sets because you've been fighting together for 3 months, admittedly in training, but that's sort of the goal here.
Hey, don't
Right.
minimize those train dummies. Those things are tough.
I mean, they definitely hit back.
Yeah.
A couple of you guys are training dummies.
Yeah.
Not gonna say who.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So I'm Warforged, but only Don is aware of this. Don and I joined together a few months back. We speak like we have known each other for a few months prior to that.
So, question
And
about that then.
Yes.
So like you appear human.
No. I just never ever take off my hat, goggles, or bandana or armor in front of any of you.
But you're not wearing a
You
bandana
never-
right now.
That's true.
immersion broken. We might as well go home.
I was only saying
supposed to be speaking out of
What's
character.
the point?
I was only saying that because he joined the call with it on, and
Yeah.
no one
Yeah.
got to see it.
That's a fair point. All right.
he joined the call like in full
I
getup.
think it makes sense for me to, when I'm speaking out of character of my character, for me to be fully dressed, while the rest of the time I'm not.
Yeah, that's the direction this should go.
Yeah, it's definitely. This is maintained.
Personally, I think you should commit and just wear that for 4 hours.
You should
I could.
just to clarify, you should
It
be
would-
fully dressed at all times. You should only be fully
Okay,
dressed
there
as
we
your
go.
character.
But yeah, so
So you can't tell that I'm not a humanoid you're aware of.
We just think you're kind of weird.
yeah,
Other than
and
that,
as a
I
point
I
of
never
context,
eat or drink with you. However, I do like to follow Don around to his drinking.
Cool. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I thought that was
So
important.
when we're drinking together, because I saw Don nodding, you're just kind of standing there like, this is happening.
Minus
Totally
the
normal
nodding.
human behavior.
Yes. I'll hold a giant tankard, but I'll never drink from it.
okay. What else?
Okay, so should I take this off or not?
I mean, it's up to you,
Let's
dude,
vote.
but it seems spectacularly awful to keep it on.
I was just prompting.
You, I
So
mean,
keep it
I
on.
was just prompting because I wanted everyone to see it at least.
Just freeze this and make it that I'm just a picture.
No. We're not gonna punk out on
yeah.
your commitment to your character, Ryan. Come on.
That's fair
Either
point,
commit
thank
to
you.
the bit or don't.
I appreciate that. I appreciate your willingness to let me commit to something. So I am 6.5 feet tall, almost unusual in how skinny I appear to be underneath my scale armor. I never take the hat or goggles or bandana off. I appear to be extremely socially awkward and always will turn to Don for guidance on social interactions. When asked about prior life, I simply say I was an assistant. Oh
Yep,
Eric's
checks
like,
out.
wait, what?
Nothing,
Okay.
nothing unusual there.
yeah. I also have a giant like lizard that follows me around now. That looks like a tree log with a giant mouth full of stone teeth.
I'm gonna need
It's
you to
okay, he
clarify
won't bite
how
you.
big this giant lizard is.
My size.
What?
In length or in height?
And indeed,
If
so
I were laying down.
mechanically, it is a medium creature,
Yeah, so
Got it.
which is
You
to
got
say
a fucking
fairly
crocodile
hefty.
with you.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
Okay.
it's
Apparently, I
big
would
enough
not
that
pay attention
people
to
are
the
concerned.
Discord to get that. Can I ride it? I feel like I would have tried this already.
that would be up to the god.
I mean, you can have tried, because
It
this
is a
seems an
thing.
appropriate time for the first roll of the night. Uh,
Well, are we all drinking at this point in time?
I would assume so. On one of the nights of your drinking, he is sufficiently drunk to try to ride. Does this thing have a name?
Moto.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
So you attempt to ride Moto, and I'm gonna let you choose athletics or acrobatics. Like either trying to physically hold on or dexterously hold on. What are you
I'm gonna
doing,
go
Kat?
acrobatics. I'm gonna go acrobatics.
Okay.
I would hope so.
Oh, and
That is
go ahead.
the modified point.
Oh, what?
The
20?
modified point.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's up to Achilles how willing Moto is to be ridden. Like it's technically feasible. I'm gonna slap you if you turn around and try to ride it into battle. I mean, it's still a medium creature, so like it's not
Yeah.
practical to ride into battle, but you can just like hop on like you're on a little trike.
I was
'Cause-
thinking more surfboard, but yes.
Oh no! Well, I guess that's a good question. Are you riding it like a surfboard, or are you trying to ride it like you would a normal mount?
I feel like Don Karnage, being as drunk as he was to try and ride, was apparently a missive of your god. Would have started at surfboard, but that wouldn't have ended well, so he would have fallen and kind of clung on.
Okay. All right. So yeah, you managed to ride Moto for what little value that has to anything ever. But you do. Okay. Anything else?
I am an artificer.
Yes. Don Karnage.
So I feel like this first roll of the night definitely sums up Don Karnage's kind of general outlook on life, human rogue. His name is fully Don Karnage. It's not like, don't call him Don, because it is Don Karnage. It's a full thing.
Not Don K.
No, don't do that.
All right,
And we talked about this. Don't be like that.
all right, DK.
Actually, I'm all. We'll talk about it. We'll try it
It's
out
got
for a little
both parts
while.
in there.
We'll see if it works. But yeah. Life of the party, or at least in his brain, he is very, very loud, very not even outspoken. He just talks. Not the smartest person you're gonna meet, but doesn't need to be, because he's gonna make up with that in panache. He is completely open about his backstory. He doesn't hide shit. So he was the self-proclaimed king of the Sky Pirates before the other Sky Pirates didn't like that and literally shot him down. And this stint in the Jaeger Corps is the beginning of his groveling return to greatness.
And then your background's a swashbuckler?
Yes.
Okay. And then what were your two backgrounds?
The background, so the archetype within Rogue is swashbuckler. The background is actually gladiator.
Okay, cool. And then what's the backgrounds for Achilles and Bob?
I mean, I already said I was
I
a
just didn't remember.
paladin in the Imperial.
Okay. So like the soldier
guards?
background or whatever?
I mean, yeah, mechanically.
Imperial Army.
The Imperial Army.
Specifically Oath of the Crown. And then Achilles is Artificer, Steel Defender. Or Battlesmith is what
Yes.
the subclass is. That's right.
So he has a soldier background, but he was an assistant to another artificer.
I bring it up a little bit because I forgot to mention that I'm an entertainer, so like I kind of like to be the center of attention, and so I'd probably get along really well with Don Karnage. We probably did a lot of shenanigans, right? Getting drunk together and then like.
This is gonna be good. Yeah,
I'd be
we're gonna
encouraging
be drinking with Bob. We're gonna be like commiserating about things.
Like I would have been
sharing stories.
encouraging you to try and ride moto. Like I would have given you a boost or whatever.
So we've got 3 carousing alcoholics, and then a guy that just stands awkwardly next to them.
I am the designated driver.
Come on, we've all got that friend. We all know that guy.
So this is basically Star Trek the
Faulting
original.
you. This is actually working out really well.
It's like Star Trek the original series, but instead of Spock, we have Data.
Yeah.
I like how none of you pointed out that my lights randomly became really red.
I mean,
I thought you were going for a mood thing.
Yeah, I thought that was.
I probably will in future sessions when I have time to like actually play around, but no, not really intentionally.
But it's blue now.
Whoops.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, I'm liking this.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go with normal light for now, and I'll play with it later.
Yeah,
You're having a really good time there, game.
Okay, well, no, Rich is having a good time. I was really confused, and then I realized he's an asshole.
I can control the lights.
Okay, so yeah, I will play around with some sort of like moodish lighting because I do like the idea, but it needs to be bright enough that like you can see me.
Yeah.
The red, I
webcam
think, was a
doesn't
little
look like
too
shit.
dark. But I'm not gonna worry about it now. So cool. So you guys are traveling for a couple days. The world of Forthien has sort of magical Orion, magical technology. Unfortunately, other than trains, that technology really there aren't cars. So you're still basically horse and buggy.
Okay.
Most of the Magitech advances are much smaller in scale. In practice, the larger a thing is, the more power and more involved it is, and it's just not practical. Magitech is not a self replenishing resource. So just in general, things like lamps are all over the place. But a car, that's a much bigger deal. They exist. They're not going to go from some random town to some random town.
So, question. Presumably
Yes.
with like lamps and stuff, do those then have to be like recharged by someone?
Yes, but in practice, because the amount of energy that is necessary to power the lamp is so little, that those recharging periods can sometimes be months apart.
Okay, cool.
So it's a lot more practical to do than larger things.
So
So-
they just like the recharging process is just your local Magitech battery guy comes by and just kind of like, plugs everything in for a little bit, and then
You call the
just,
geek squad, they come out, and yeah.
I mean, presumably it'd be someone with magic powers.
In a car.
Yeah, so so you can think of the way Magitech works as sort of being like how a cell phone works. Not practically, just in terms of like how common knowledge works. Most people don't know how it works, they just know that it does. So they call a guy, which turns out to just be the local wizard who's like, okay, cool. I put magic power into it and now it works. But most people don't necessarily know or care about the underpinnings of this system. And like it's very much like all things, like you guys are welcome to ask probing questions, but I'm going to generally avoid giving more information than is necessary because I don't want to just like wax poetic for 45 minutes on how this one arbitrary part of the world works.
It's the best part.
So yeah, that's sort of how it works. So you guys take a couple horses and like a carriage, and it takes you a couple days to get there, but eventually you find yourselves arriving near the town of Codlin's Rest. Now the town you guys came from, shit, did I not record that or write that down anywhere? I didn't. It's in the wiki, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. There's a lot of stuff in my brain.
Town A.
That's
what?
debatable.
Town A.
No, it has a name. Like it's written.
I believe.
So you guys go.
I will venture, I guess, that none of us care what the town's name is.
I am
maybe.
deeply invested in what the town's
Is
name
it with Stock and Forth?
Is it you or it is Bob?
No, it's in
Me.
the other state.
Oh, so
Yeah, it's fine.
Hey, Orion, is Moto like a little Godzilla or is he like a little alligator?
Like a Komodo dragon.
Okay. So we've been lifting this fucking lizard into and out of a carriage several times a day.
No, it can get in and out of it on its own if need be.
Does it need a carriage or can it keep up with the horses?
Oh my god, can I keep up with the horses?
Jesus.
It should be able to.
I mean, what?
Not carrying anything.
I mean,
All right.
I mean, if it dashes all the time, I still don't think it has the speed of a horse.
Or the endurance, maybe?
Well,
It
no,
would have
my
the
thought-
endurance.
We're pulling like a wagon, correct?
I suppose that's true. So they're not exactly going at full speed. Yeah, it can
Yeah,
keep up with the
I-
horses, and it doesn't really have an endurance problem.
can't I
Right.
just get in a wagon?
Oh,
Seems
If you want
unnecessarily
it to.
cruel to like make it run.
well, it's like a artificer thing, right?
Yeah,
It is.
but
Okay.
you don't know that.
Oh, okay. Got
Oh
it.
yeah,
Is
unnecessarily
the point.
cruel.
Like, my understanding is that this thing has been presented as basically a wood-covered Komodo dragon. Achilles, have you presented this thing as real?
I have not presented it as anything. It is just my pet that walks around with me.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes in the
And
wagon.
we wouldn't necessarily know enough about artificers to be like, oh yeah, this is artificer thing.
I don't think you would necessarily know anything about artificers.
Other than what they've seen with me.
Yes. Cleaver's Fork. I would like, if I spend a bunch of time figuring out what the names of things are, to at least reference them correctly. So the town of
I better
Cleaver's
start
Fork.
taking notes.
No, you don't
It's
need
in
to.
the
That's
wiki.
literally what the wiki is.
But that would require me to be on the wiki.
You're not wrong. Fair enough. Take notes away. Actually, I don't know why I'm dissuading you from taking notes. That's idiotic. You should definitely be taking notes.
I'm taking
Or
notes
don't.
in the
I don't
wiki.
care what your life is. So you guys, okay. So there's a couple pieces of information that I sort of glossed over that fall into that same vein of things you would know that are just worth me mentioning, and you can decide if you care. One, the name of the corps that you have joined is called TBD. Over the course of the 3 months, I imagine the four of you have asked what TBD stands for. And over the, is that a valid assumption?
Yeah.
I definitely would have.
Okay. Most of the times you've asked, you've got some different answer until eventually Shane broke down and explained that TBD was in fact that made the name because he couldn't think of a name. So on the documentation he filed with the guild, he wrote TBD, and now sort of just comes up with various things that could stand for. But I imagine you guys pressed him until he finally told you the real story. once you guys
So
are a
it could
formal,
be like total brutal domination. We could do
Tea bag dippers.
I don't think he would have come up with that one, but yes, in that vein is sort of like every single time you asked, it was a different thing, and that's sort of probably what clued you in because he could never remember the last thing he said. TBD is located in the town of their headquarters is located in the town of Cleaver's Fork. It's just a really small, like 30 to 40 people, like cattle ranch town. It just happens to be the case that he bought the building from like a much larger guild. Much larger core. So it's much bigger than is necessary, which is why it has like full training facilities, despite the fact that TBD is actually fairly small. So
to sum up, we joined the most prestigious Jaeger Corps that exists.
no, you joined one of the smaller ones.
That just has the most prestigious stuff.
Which I think makes some amount of sense. So would your reasons for joining, like they've come up, right? Like Jider, you've mentioned what brought you to joining.
Yeah,
Corps,
so
right?
like basically I kept running into members of this corps when I was essentially doing freelance do-goodery. Specifically I heard about it when I was helping some people out, and the Corps was in the area doing the same thing. And eventually I just kind of made my way over to it.
Yeah, so and Bob, like realistically, if you've been just slowly washing your way down the Corps, eventually you just end up at the smallest one. It's not no, I'm gonna say it's the smallest. Like that's sort of reasonable. Don, I'm not sure why you necessarily would have picked this one. It occurs to me that it didn't specifically come up when we were talking about
Don's outlook would have been more of a target of opportunity more than anything else.
I will say you are more likely in this one to get higher paying jobs because the competition for work is a lot less. Like you're not dealing with there are 7 other squads that I'm gonna have to fight for the really good jobs. It's realistically, if a job comes in, you're probably going to do it because there's all the other squads are out doing jobs. Yeah, so I think that would make sense. So yeah, it's not very big. They bought the headquarters from a much larger one, so there's room to improve. There are, this particular one has things like it has a full forge that's just not manned. Like it's got some medical facilities that just there's no one there. The only person who's ever consistently at the headquarters is Shane. He is the owner of TBD and the founder, and he used to. What?
That's his house, isn't it? He lives there.
Yeah. Well, so do the rest. Well, optionally, so do the rest of you. There's actually a fairly large like dorm facility. But you're also welcome to be living elsewhere. During training, you would have been living in the dorms. You also would have been told, like, once you've become a formal squad, you'll be able to just live wherever you want as long as you're within 24 hours of the headquarters. So you don't even have to live in town. You just have to be able to get back if you're contacted for a job.
Little quick side note here. You guys all have characters in D&D Beyond. I just realized there's an extension so that anyone watching can actually click on your characters. I added you guys all, so like everyone can see like your health and everything. So if you track stuff in D&D Beyond, like it's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So
yeah, that's what I will be doing.
Cool.
Out of curiosity, does that link let them look at everything or just like the general overview?
It lets them look at your character sheet. It looks like, or at least,
got it.
Yeah. I can remove your character if you're, like.
No, I'm just. The reason I ask is more just for a matter of like, should I do a full data dump of entire backstory or not?
No, I might add that in the wiki, but I think it's mostly just for conditions and stuff like that.
It's a valid point. Like, I would like it if you each put your backstory somewhere, because literally for all of you, our backstories have been fleshed. Like, I fleshed out your backstories with you over a series of messages on some sort of chat client, and that's going to be really hard in even a month for me to find. So now that we've sort of gone back and forth and figured that out, it would be nice if that then got collated. And I mentioned this earlier, but it doesn't have to be in D&D Beyond. I just need to know where it is. I would prefer everyone's to be in the same place. And that wiki would seem to make the most sense. But again, that was just sort of a random idea I had. I'm not sold on.
If everyone puts it in their D&D Beyond profile, I'll put it into the wiki.
That works.
Hey, all right.
Will do.
What? Okay.
I said will do.
Okay. So, yeah, I think that's just like the handful of, like I said, I try to keep information dumps to a minimum. But I think it's useful to know like what kind of fit place you're joining. But we are now.
I'm good.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because I haven't started anything, and now would be a good time to ask.
So over the course of this campaign, whatever direction it goes and we take it into, the idea is that Cleaver's
Fork.
Thank you. That's HQ. That's base of operations that we dispatch out of, and kind of becomes this, if not necessarily the center, a central part of how this game is going to build.
So, sort of, yes.
Okay.
I'm
just thinking if, like, during our, if there's a vested interest in trying to improve the headquarters of the TBD Jaeger Corps.
Yeah. So yes. So what I will say, so as to not give anything, I don't want to give anything away, and that's sort of a complicated question. What I will say is that at no point do I plan to take your improvements or achievements away, even if at some point how those improvements or achievements manifest changes.
Okay, I do it. But I mean, like you said, that like there's a forge that's not currently occupied. So
yes.
If we're in this next town over, and one of these deserters burns down the forge, and like there's suddenly a blacksmith out of work, and he needs a job, and like we've got a place we can go. Like,
yeah. So like that line of thinking, that is sort of where I'm going with that. And so what I will say is, I make no promises about it necessarily being like your headquarters for the entire campaign, but I will promise that if you went through the effort of getting a blacksmith for that forge, the practical benefit of that choice will be present throughout. I will not like take that away.
Okay, I mean, I'm not looking for for practical gameplay boons. Really, more of a role plan. But
that too. Yeah. Fair point. Whatever it is, yes, I intend to not just arbitrarily go and fuck everything you've done, because that would be bad DMing.
It's occasionally the responsible choice, but only.
Those 12 NPCs over the course of the last 6 months you've met, befriended, and hired, they're all dead now.
I mean, I will say.
Next session.
So I'm gonna knock this really fast, so I don't get too far off track. I will say there is, if everyone is on board for it, having the things that you built up be threatened in game, not like, oh, you came back and they're all gone, can be really dramatic and engrossing.
Yeah.
Well, things will happen. The campaign will occur. I don't mean to cut you off. This is also a very complicated, loaded, somewhat spoilery conversation thread that I would rather get off of if people are satisfied with that answer.
Yes, let's get into the game.
So you're still riding on a caravan with some horses. But the good news is you are almost at Codlin's Rest. So Cleaver's Fork, the town you've been in for the past couple months, there's probably 30 to 40 people there. It's a cattle ranch community. I mention this only because the town of Codlin's Rest, which is in the neighboring state of Senevilla Helm, there's some wacky names, It is much larger. It's probably a little over 100 people. And it is it is a like 150 to people, and it's a fairly bustling, like smaller scale farming community. So there's still a fair amount of farmland that you guys kind of ride through on the road. But once you arrive, you find that there's a small market area where some of the stalls get propped up.
A further point of clarification: do we carry any sort of identification that we're from a Jaeger Corps? Like, is there an emblem or a badge? Or
yeah,
something?
I feel like that would make sense. And I feel like it would be different for each one.
Right.
So you guys would very probably have, I won't say uniforms just because I don't really want to introduce uniformity to your appearance, but I would say you guys definitely have like a badge, like an emblem that you guys can sort of show off.
Okay, cool.
And that would serve to prove you are representatives of TBD.
Exactly. I'm
Is
saying,
the
like,
emblem literally just the letters TBD?
Yeah.
It is
you know
now.
what? No, it is what you want it to. What do you want it to be?
That?
Yeah.
All right, then yeah. Yeah, I mean, if he couldn't come up with a name, he sure as hell couldn't come up with a logo, but he needed both to start this thing. So yeah.
It's just brass letters, just TBD, just.
Yeah.
Yep.
You are not making
Sure.
sounds, Rich.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Or it was included in the Jaeger registration, where they just they make your badge for you.
I mean, they're not particularly unique to you guys.
Okay.
So there's just like a pile of badges somewhere.
I meant when TBD got registered as a Jaeger guild.
No, he would have made the badges. It's
Okay.
just that he's not a very creative dude. So in the same vein that he couldn't come up with a name, he also couldn't come up with a logo. He's not a graphic artist, a fantasy graphic artist. So he just said the name. I mean, to be fair,
I feel like there's some projection going on here.
yeah, pretty much. No.
He wanted.
It's okay. Incremental improvements.
So Bob, you would know this, having been to most of these pins have the name on them. Really, it's probably only the two very largest that are just a logo. Because pretty much everywhere else, you kind of need the name because the logo isn't going to be enough. Most people aren't going to see the logo and immediately go, "Oh, I know who that is."
Right, because in Cleaver's Fork, if there's 40 people, well, guess what? We know the 40 fucking people. But go to the next state, well, maybe they know the name of Jaeger Corps nearby, but not necessarily. They're not going. The hundreds of people here are not going to know our faces.
Pretty much. So pretty much they always have the name on them. It's just he didn't have a logo. You guys arrive at Codlin's Rest, and it's basically a small walled, very rough-shod wooden walls, but walls nonetheless, sort of ringing this small town that butts up against a fairly large hill that you can kind of see as you're approaching. Seems to have a cemetery on it with a rather large monument in the center. You can't really make out from this distance what the monument looks like. It's pretty obvious, town, hill. Oh, look, there's a giant statue in that cemetery. So I guess the question I would have is where are you guys planning to go first? It's not a huge place. So there's a blacksmith, there's there's a tanner. There's a very small market square that doesn't appear to be in operation today, but you can tell like this is where some of the outlying towns go to sell some of their excess produce. That sort of
So
thing.
this is a hub of the local community.
Yeah. But it's not very clearly, it's not like a major trade route. So it's pretty clear like the market as it is really just for the town.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool.
Essentially.
Is there a tavern?
There is.
I have a very important question before we go down that route.
Okay.
Does TBD own the wagon and the horses that we rode here with, or did we get a ride with like somebody else?
I think you probably borrowed them from someone in town.
Cool.
Like, I don't think TBD necessarily owns them, but I also don't think
we definitely probably have a little bit of a monetary stake in making sure we return them.
I mean, well, yes.
Okay.
You should return them.
Yeah. All right.
Sure.
Continue
Also,
with the
you
ride
mentioned
thought.
we have a point of contact in town, right?
Yes. So the other thing that I will now take this opportunity to mention is TBD is an excellent example of you would know you're like the third or fourth squad. Like there's just not that many. It's fairly small, which means it's wildly impractical for TBD, as an example, to have somebody in every town ready to like take jobs from the citizenry. And it turns out that that's fairly true of even some of the larger ones. Like it just, they don't want to necessarily staff that. And so what has happened over time is this thing called the Jaeger Guild has sprung up. And essentially it is a group of not Jaegers, but like some of them are retired. Some of them are just, I like what you do, but I'm just an administrator. And the purpose,
is this like mercenary post office?
essentially, yeah. The basic premise is this group of like essentially non-combatants has gotten together and said, well, what if we do that for you? But we don't have the overhead of also needing to serve as Jaegers, and we can handle all of the requests. So
Mercenary staff. Yeah, okay.
So pretty much every town, except the very smallest, usually has a guild office with at least one person staffing it. And the guild's primary responsibility is they're the point of contact for the citizenry who have some sort of request for a Jaeger. And they're the ones who generally figure out that risk-reward ratio and figure out, like, you want X, okay, that's going to cost you Y. And then assuming a contract is formed, they sort of route it to the most reasonable core to choose. So your point of contact is actually the essentially receptionist slash manager of the Codlin's Rest branch of the Jaeger Guild.
We got our job from someone in the the kingdom or the empire?
Kingdom.
Okay. So someone from the kingdom went to a representative of the Jaeger Guild and said, "Hey, we need these guys."
Yeah.
Our
happens,
Jaeger got the job. Would the Jaeger Guild representative in this town then know about the job? Or would it not be distributed information like that?
Yeah, so traditionally, no. In this case, yes.
Okay.
So both the kingdom and the empire, like the capital cities, actually also have Jaeger Guild. Because there are actually a couple guilds that operate outside of sort of the free states at this point.
That makes sense. It's been a couple hundred years. They've established that this thing works, so you can get a job done, by these people that are trained to do that kind of thing.
Essentially,
keep their paladins doing their own stuff.
If you're let's say a merchant in the empire, your only recourse would have been to go to the army, and they have a very, very clear band of things they care about. So there are a couple of Jaeger Corps that have found, that they can still get plenty of work in the Empire and the Kingdom. So the sequence of events was the Royal Army went to the Jaeger Guild and said, we have deserters, find someone to find them, because the army can't go into the Free States at all, right? In this specific case, that got routed to you guys, but simultaneously, in the case of deserters in particular, information goes to all the guilds throughout the Free States, essentially with wanted posters. Because that's how they find them, or at least find leads, is every town has wanted posters. And you can see as you go into town, these wanted posters of these 5 people. Although curiously, you can tell that in most of the places you look, 2 of them have been torn down. Specifically, they are the ones of Orla and Fargus, who I didn't give you names at all, but they are the halfling and the gnome. These 2 have been torn down in most of the places in this town. The other 3 are still up. And
Orla's the halfling, Fargus is the gnome?
Yes. Okay. I mean, if you
Got
would
it.
like all of their names, I can give them to you.
Sure.
You were handed the dossiers, so you would have this information.
Yeah.
So the halfling's name is Fargus Greenleaf.
Okay.
The human is named Gerald Skelton.
Okay.
The dwarf's name is Gertis Lutger, Lutgehr.
Okay.
The gnome's name is Orla Lufolue, Looffollue.
I don't care about spelling these, right?
Okay, that's fair. And the half-orc's name is Hagrin Oakley.
Cool.
I like Lusaloo.
So, in addition to the fact that now we know that there's only 2 of them here, we also know that they're stupid. Cool.
A consequence of this is the reason that your contact knows about your mission is she is the one that reported the sighting. Or more accurately, someone reported the sighting. Someone saw them because of the wanted posters, reported to her that they had had a sighting. She conveyed that information to Shane, and that's why you're there. So that's a very long-winded way of saying normally, no, they probably wouldn't know what your mission is. But in the case of deserters, and in this specific case, she does, because she's the one that said, come here.
That
We've
makes
had
sense.
sightings. Interestingly, you say 2, but the sightings, did I tell you who the sightings were of?
No.
Yeah,
No.
The gnome and the halfling.
We just assume.
No, that's
You said
okay,
you said you saw 2. You said you saw a couple. I'm inferring those the gnome and
Okay.
halfling.
I wanted
Not
to make
tell us.
sure that I hadn't slipped the tongue. So presumably your first stop, so I've described the town. Like, what's your plan?
Um,
I want to stop by the guild.
Okay.
yeah, for
makes
sake
sense.
of mechanics, is one of us driving this wagon or whatever? Like,
Yeah.
that we don't have there's no volunteer from the town or a hirer
No.
or something.
One of you
we're-
would be driving. So that's a good question. Who got that joy?
I mean, I figure over days, following one road,
That's
we
fair.
kind of swapped it out. Like, it wasn't like a
That's
big
fair.
thing. Most of the horses are going to do the fucking job. I will assume that I've got it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Works.
no. So we'll take it. I guess we'll go to the Jaeger Corps branch, but I'm looking for a stable or something that we can, tie this stuff up and let the horse, get the horses some food and water. And
Sure. So there are stables, and you can easily stable the horses for 2 coppers.
Right.
Which is mostly just to cover feed.